advance our men.
So that's what you're saying. Before I go to our other guest, Mr. Adish Aggarwala, I just want to ask one more question. And it's just coming to me right now. I'm asking you, why Nusrat Mirza? Pakistani journalists believe that he is not such a high-flying or credible journalist and not somebody who is there in the cognitive sense of it when you talk about Pakistani journalists and also international. Why is this person Nusrat Mirza? Why he and why was he? And he himself has accepted he's been in India multiple times, 2007, 9, 2010 and also 2011. He's repeatedly come to India. But why only this Pakistani journalist? Even for your conference, was he the only name that was recommended and pushed?
That is a question to be inquired into. What was the personal interest and on whose request he came? When we are being pressurized and we are actually not punished because I don't care. If Vice President is not there, does not mean our conference is a failure. It is actually what type of discussion we are having in the conference. What is the outcome of that?
Correct.
That is material. It is not material that Vice President has come.
This was a counter-terrorism conference. Yeah.
Only that enhanced the news value.
Correct.
When President is saying something, that will become reportable. When I say, it will be less reportable. Other person further less reportable. Because with the status, media also recognize.
Yes.
They give the space
news value
in their media, whether electronic or it is print media. So it was not affecting us. But this is certain, he was having interest. I have not seen. It will the record of the Vice President Secretariat can reveal whether he used to come to the Vice President Secretariat or not. And now I'm sure that record must have been destroyed, keeping in view because this is 10 years.
About 13 years ago, yeah.
That was in 2009.
13 years
so, 13 years old record. So we have destroyed. That was of no utility.
But the call records will be there, and you are saying that you have somebody from the VP Secretariat and you have named the person, and that person spoke to you repeated time, multiple number of times you've spoken, so the CDR will be there. Tuhin Sinha.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Yes, Anand.
What's the truth? Is it possible that somebody could have been invited?
Well,
Mr. Ansari says, I have not met him or never have I spoken with him. Nusrat Mirza says, I was on the same dais, but I have not met him.
Well, two things here. Number one, Hamid Ansari, by default, through design, a natural tendency and at times elements that were inimical to the country's interests. And this was very apparent in the case of Nusrat Mirza. When I hear Mr. Aggarwal, I also get this impression that despite paucity of time, Mr. Ansari was somehow desperate to attend that event in the company of, the invited guests from Pakistan. I don't know what was this desperation. Only he can explain that. But the larger point is that in the whole of the UPA era, the delusional peace initiative by a select set of liberal, so-called liberals, the liberal ecosystem, and obviously supported by the UPA, was probably one of the biggest security scams. I don't know how much of our security interests and information have been compromised and made privy to these visiting Pakistani peaceniks and journalists. And somebody like Hamid Ansari, even if he were not directly involved, I think he has a lot to answer. Two raw officers, N.K. Sood and R.K. Yadav, have made charges against him of compromising India's security interests in Tehran. Even after he left the vice president's position, his obstinacy in attending an event of the National Women's Front, a wing, an offshoot of PA5, when he was clearly advised against him speaking against India's interests at Indian American Muslim Council, all of these add up, and I think it's very embarrassing that a person who held the post of vice president should have acted in a manner irresponsible and not behoving his position.
Well, you can put 3-4 things over a decade and a half, or if not more, and then say these things add up, and then they try and present a picture. But in this case, in this particular case, Sujata Paul, what comes to mind is that this is exactly 1 year. Let's say even if it happened in 2007, it happened in 2014, 2018. That again you would ask questions. But in 2009, just around a year, less than a year, since 26/11, how could this clearance have been given for a counter-terrorism conference? And how could an insistence have been made to have a Pakistani journalist sitting in a counter-terrorism conference, international conference of jurists?
Mr. Narasimhan, I think this question should be directed to the government of the day as to how the clearances were given. Absolutely correct. But let me also remind you that after the terrorist activities that took place up to 2008, things did change. And that is why, by the time Mr. Modi was elected in 2014, he invited Mr. Nawaz Sharif for his oath-taking ceremony. He also visited Pakistan because things were not as bad as they've become today. Now, coming to your second point about Nusrat Mirza, we are giving so much importance to a person who proclaims to be a spy for the ISI, and he's going talking about it. Spies don't mention that they've been spying for somebody, and he's been known to be a name dropper and a self-projector. And let me tell you that when I was checking up his credentials, what I found was that he was peddling conspiracy theories about the 2005 earthquake which took place in Pakistan, the 2011 tsunami in Japan. So are we trusting that particular person? Now, when the intelligence clearances were given, it's all very well for Dr. Adish Aggarwala, who I happen to know only through my conversations on the phone with him, where I have also been invited to some of your programs, Mr. Adish Aggarwala. And, I would only like to say that you have co-authored a book with on Mr. Narendra Modi, haven't you? But if you have these programs and he has not attended a program of yours, how are you questioning Dr. Hamid Ansari? One. And secondly, when you're talking about somebody who's been peddling conspiracy theories in his own country, where he's not considered important at all.
Then tell me.
Just last one.
Okay,
one last
please
point.
complete. Yeah.
Yes. So, the thing is that when we talk about respecting our presidents and vice presidents, how come Dr. Hamid Ansari has always been on target of the BJP?
Sorry, I'm just respectfully asking you, are you making your argument or are you killing your own argument?
No, I am not. I'm just telling you that
here is the first point. 1 minute. If Mr. Adish Aggarwala writing a book or co-authoring a book on Narendra Modi is enough to question his integrity, but Mr. Hamid Ansari sharing a dais with a Pakistani journalist should not be questioned, and that should not question his intentions. One. Second point.
Yes.
You are discrediting Nusrat Mirza, saying he's a poser, he's an exaggerator, he's somebody who's an opportunist. Everything you're saying. Despite that, he's there on that platform. Despite that, he's got the table and at the Jamia Masjid, Jamia University, this one conference in 2009, and he's sitting there with the likes of Ghulam Nabi Azad in the picture, with the likes of Hamid Ansari in the picture. So then again you are killing your argument that how is it that somebody who's supposed to be who you are ridiculing and should not even get 2 penny of attention is the only Pakistani sitting there, and is the only Pakistani whose presence was insisted upon by as alleged.
I've understood your question.
So are you making an argument or are you killing the argument altogether?